October before a midterm, and we got a room full of people focused on climate science. This is impressive. I love to see this. Thank you all, because democracy only works when you work it, right? So thank you, Roger and Jim and Kathleen and everybody that put this together. Thank you to the fire marshal for not kicking us all out. I was born and raised in Riverside, California, where everyone in LA and Orange County were kind enough to send us their smog. So we would have smog warning days in elementary school where you couldn't go outside to recess because of the air quality, right? And we're seeing that around the world. Now, when we tried to do something about it here in California with clean air emission standards and car standards, everybody in DC told us it would cripple the economy, right? When you look at the California GDP since 2010 compared to the national GDP, it's been double. Here in California, we have the 6th largest economy in the world. We have over 4% GDP year over year, and the rest of the country has about 2%. We're anemically plugging along. We're all on the same page when it comes to climate science. But I'll tell you, I'm running as an independent because I know this district's composition. Quick crowd participation. How many people in here know some ardent Republicans? Right? All right, hands down. Raise your hand again if any of them have been swayed by the compelling science. Right? It's sad. It's laughable, but it's sad. How many of them are compelled by the severe storms happening on the East Coast right now? Right? This is the problem that we face. So I work for an investment firm. A few years ago, I started a startup investment firm out of Newport Beach, about $200 million under management when I got there, and we're north of $5 billion now. That's not the part that I'm proud of. The part that I'm proud of is we did that with 2 funds. One was a global impact fund where we would lend money to developing nations, but every loan to that middle market business had to have a positive socio-economic or environmental impact. And the other one is a straight up renewable energy fund. We buy solar and wind farms from the developers, they're plugged into the utility grid, and we sell the electricity back to the utility company. I can go toe-to-toe with any business Republican on how this is no longer a fiscal argument, because that's what they're all digging their heels in on, right? This is no longer an argument from an economic perspective. We have an opportunity to use the data, the financial and the scientific data, to start swaying Republicans into our corner. So if we're going to truly flip the 48th, how many of those ardent Republicans are going to vote for someone with a D next to their name? And that's my concern. I did not make the decision to run as an independent lightly. I've historically been a Democrat. This is the only time I've ever been confused as not being a progressive liberal, right? I'm usually getting yelled at to shut up. So one of the things that we have to do in this room is not talk about the climate science and how compelling it is, because we all know that. That's why we're here. What we need to talk about is what we're going to do once we get to DC. Once you have to work with those ardent Republicans, once you have to go see those constituents and deal with that guy in the White House that probably has 15 pens to veto any legislation you do get passed. So on our flyer over there, we have 7 things that we would like to do when it comes to climate science if we're elected. And these are things that I think we can get done on a bipartisan basis, because I truly believe that in America, we all agree on 80% of the issues, right? But it's the 10% at either end of the spectrum that they have us shouting at each other over. So we need to recenter the conversation, and we can do things like go after a national cap and trade program. We can model it after AB 32 here in California. We can go after renewable energy standards here in California. The utility companies have to be at 50% by 2030. The city of Houston already generates 50% of their power from renewable standards, from renewable sources, right? This is Houston, our largest refinery and export of oil and fossil fuels in Texas, as we're all aware. And they're producing 50% of their power from renewables. We can do it with supporting programs like ARC, the Appalachian Regional Commission, where they're training coal miners how to code, right? And Trump just cut the funding. We can do it with things like reducing food waste. Nationally, 1 in 7 children are going hungry. Here in Orange County, it's 1 in 5. We waste 40% of our food. That is a huge carbon footprint. Lastly, there is the USC Schwarzenegger Institute Digital Environmental Legislative Handbook. This is a legislative handbook that I can take into DC and show them different legislation around the country that's working. And we can obviously re-enter the Paris Agreement. So I believe that we have things to do. That's the campaign. Thank you very much. My name is Kevin Kensinger.